Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. I'm Tyler, and the topic of today's video is actionable steps to begin pursuing your life purpose today. Now, this is actually the chapter 3 of the three-part series of finding direction in your life. If you haven't seen the other two yet, go ahead and check those out. But if you have, hopefully after seeing those first two videos, we now have our mindset and our lifestyle in place. With these two things in place, we can now begin the adventure of self-discovery, and we were once lost, but now we're much more closer to finding our direction. Now we'll be able to move towards the ultimate goal, and that goal is to discover why you were in this world and how you were meant to impact it. In other words, we're going to be learning how to find the purpose of your life. Now, upon finding my purpose, I definitely felt much, much better about life. My purpose is to be helping and inspiring other people. I absolutely love to do it. But prior to this, life always felt much harder than it needed to be. I mean, I lived in America. I live in America. I had my basic needs met, and I was working an entry-level job that, while it sucked, I mean, I was getting paid good. I didn't really have much to complain about, but I always felt like I was swimming upstream against the current and the flow of life rather than with it. Once I discovered my purpose, my energy changed completely. Now, before, it wasn't, it was really just feeling like a meaningless grind and a means to an end. But now that I had the purpose with my work, it felt much better. Rather than feeling just completely exhausted and dreading going to work, now I had desire and I had a passion towards completing my work. However, this did not happen overnight. It takes a lot of time. It took failure, lots of it. It took a commitment to wanting to be better, and it required a belief that better did exist. Throughout my journey, I also had to develop my mindset and my lifestyle so that I was in the right place to discover my purpose. Once I had everything in order, or at least for the most part, still working on a few things. But once I had most stuff in order, I did discover that life isn't meaningless and it's in fact much, much more enjoyable with a purpose. And that's why today's video I will be explaining what purpose is, why it's important to find, and the methods that I use to discover mine. So let's start with talking about what is purpose. Truthfully, it's subjective. It really could be anything for anybody, right? Like there could literally be a guy whose purpose is to be the best balloon animal maker ever. And first glance, that might seem kind of ridiculous, but if that's what drives them to get out of bed every morning, bust their ass to do some meaningful work and feel damn good about it, so be it, right? With that type of energy and drive, who knows? Maybe somebody could be the best balloon animal maker ever and make a shit ton of money. I mean, the Kardashians love talking about nonsense, complaining, and getting plastic surgery, and they made millions of dollars off that, so let's give the balloon animal guy a chance, right? But honestly, on a more serious note, when we're talking about the meaning of purpose, I like Jordan Peterson's definition. He has many books written on it, and he defines it as the purpose of life, as far as I can tell, is to find a mode of being that's so meaningful that the fact that life is suffering is no longer relevant. And I think this rings very, very true. I think more people need to hear this because there's so many people I know and I've seen, whether it's online or in person, they're working or they're studying on something and it's just painful. They complain about it and they're not feeling satisfied with it. What they're doing isn't meaningful to them, and otherwise the suffering would be worth it. So now if we combine the subjective nature of purpose with the literal definition, your life purpose is something that's natural to you, and while the work may be hard, it may be demanding, you do it with a sense of pride and satisfaction. I like to think of Mike Tyson's quote where he says, "Discipline is doing what you hate to do, but nonetheless doing it like you love it." I think your purpose should be something that makes a meaningful impact on the world, and it should also be something that continuously can evolve as you progress through life and provide you with continuous avenues for finding meaning. So, to put that, that sounds a little complicated. So, an example of that would be like if you were somebody who loved baseball. So, you eventually bust your butt training, you eventually become a professional, but then eventually have to retire, right? So where does your purpose, your passion for baseball go? Now you can become a coach. Eventually you could start a baseball foundation for children. And then eventually you could even own a baseball franchise, right? And so on and so forth. There's many, many things you can do with that. And now the final point I would like to add to the definition of purpose, it kind of relates to what I was just talking about with the evolution. And this comes from Man's Search for Meaning. It's a book by Viktor Frankl. And his quote, he says, "It did not really matter what we expected from life, but rather what life expected from us. We needed to stop asking about the meaning of life and instead to think of ourselves as those who were questioned by life daily and hourly." So from this, we can see that life is always challenging us and it's requiring us to adapt. The only constant thing in life is change. So your purpose may need changing or adjusting along the way, and that's okay. But the important thing is it's always going to reflect your values and your beliefs, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. So now let's talk about, why does purpose matter? Have you ever heard of an NPC? This is a video game term and it means non-player character. Essentially, it's just background characters that are there to kind of support and keep the world alive for the main characters. And I think that not having a purpose leads to eventually becoming an NPC or just living a complete life of regret. And while this might seem kind of dark, and it's definitely not judgmental, no judgment at all, but I do like to think of it as motivation. I know like it's difficult to find your purpose, but it's a whole lot better than living a life like an NPC or just being completely regretful. And that kind of ties into people who find themselves on their deathbeds. I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. This was the most common regret of all. And that's from an article talking about the top things that people regret when they're on their deathbed. So oftentimes it takes an intense state of emotion, whether it's high or low, to inspire us to change. And I think that discovering your purpose and your passion is living a life true to yourself. So if we're able to take the emotion of imagining us on a deathbed and realize, whoa, I don't want to be there and be like in regret, that's just another reason to realize why it's important and give you some motivation to work towards finding your purpose. So now let's talk about how to find your purpose. I do want to say it's absolutely an adventure, but like any adventure, it's going to have ups, it's going to have downs, plateaus, setbacks. You're going to learn what to do, what not to do, and you're going to make many incredible memories and relationships along the way. But the most important thing is you're going to learn what you're capable of, and you're going to learn who you are. It's going to be really difficult, though. I don't want to underplay that. It's actually kind of an understatement. It's going to be extremely difficult. Think of any hero in a movie, right? Think of how much they have to endure in order to complete that arc that we all love to see. Are you willing to endure discomfort or even more to have your ultimate adventure? So now, if you are, the following things I'm about to tell you are exactly what I did to find my purpose. I narrowed them down after trying numerous things from various people across books, online, and etc., right? This changed me from being a depressed, self-loathing loser into a person with drive, self-respect, and an enjoyment of life. So why not give my methods a shot and let's see what happens. The first one I'd like to tell you about is consider your interests. And I do recommend doing these in order, by the way. So when you're considering your interests, a couple things you could ask yourself is, what do you love to do? What do you love to learn about? Are there some activities that you become absolutely immersed in when you do them? You're going to want to make this a written list and you're going to want to narrow down your interests to kind of find a niche. And just a little bonus tip, try reflecting on childhood passions that you had and maybe you abandoned them due to you failed and you just wanted to avoid that, or maybe you had some pressure from society or your parents. Some of your passion may lie buried in the past and it might be beneficial for you to explore this and it could help you in considering your interests. The second thing we want to do is consider your values. What do you believe in? What is important to you? Those are a couple of things you could ask yourself there. You're also going to want to list this out so that way you can discover what really matters to you. The next thing you want to do is consider your future. What do you want your life to look like in 5 years? What do you not want your life to look like in 5 years? What do you need to manifest the desired outcomes and avoid the undesired outcomes? These are just more questions for you to think about, and you also need to write them as well. The point here is you want to give your brain some visualizations to work with. You could even consider like the deathbed example, right? Like what's something you don't want to think, right? Like you don't want to have regrets. You want to be happy, look back, and just love all the things that you did do. And the final thing that we want to do here is we want to go through a kind of a process of elimination, right? So now we have our values, we have our interests, and we have the visualizations of what we want our future to look like. So now we can kind of put them all together and start trying some things. But I do want to highlight that the odds of you finding your purpose on your first try, the first thing you do, extremely unlikely, probably impossible. I mean, it could happen, but no guarantees. I think you should accept the fact that it's going to take a lot of work and it's going to take a lot of attempts. But each time you fail, just think about it as like you can use it as data for when you're going forward. So you could think what went well, what went wrong, and what do you need to do going forward. As long as you're going upwards, you're aiming upwards, you're going to be continuously getting closer to finding your purpose. And just pursuing purpose in your life, that alone adds more meaning to your life. Person Before you were just aimlessly doing things, now you're aiming towards something and you have some more direction in your life. Personally, I had a super long list of purposes throughout my whole life. I always wanted to do something different. They kind of have a little bit of relatability, but for me, it kind of went something like when I was really young, I went from a parkour and stunt YouTuber with my friend, just doing little jumps off our BMX bikes in the backyard. And the next thing was a Call of Duty YouTuber. I used to love doing like the little quick scope montages. I thought I was going to get big. The next thing after that was a lawyer, a little bit more serious. And then I switched back to Twitch streamer, my roots, you know. And then after that, it was music producer, writer, therapist, and coach. Now I'm back to being a YouTuber and a writer while also studying psychology, which pushes me towards therapy and potentially being a coach. So those things all are also likely to change, and I graciously accept that that is possible. I know that I value human connection, I value growth, and I value joy. I'm interested in all of the topics that I study and I spend my time covering, and I know that I want to help and inspire others, and this is my current way of doing so. Oh, and one thing I would like to point out is don't become a douche or even envious of other people. Some people look down on others once they make it out, and then some people look up at others when they realize, like, wow, I'm starting pretty low, you know? You don't want to do that. The aim here is to be at peace, and I think that the psychologist Carl Jung describes this pretty well. In his book, he says, it may be described as a process of circumambulation, hard word there, around the self as the center of personality. The person aims to become conscious of him or herself as a unique human being, but at the same time, no more and no less than any other human being. You just want to be comfortable with who you are. You know what you're chasing, you have something to look forward to, and that is what matters to you. You're not more or less than anybody. As I said earlier, I used to be a depressed loser, and I'm aware of what that looks like. Like, I'll see other people now, and I'm like, damn, I remember when I used to be there. I remember what that felt like waking up like that every day. I will never look down on anyone that is in that position. And I would never look at somebody above me and wish I was there because I haven't put in the work to get to where they're at yet. So envying that just isn't fair to myself or to them. Always remember to maintain your values and connection and just appreciate all human beings, right? I think that's a good message we can all get behind. And that concludes everything we're talking about today. Hopefully, you learned a lot. Hopefully, you're feeling inspired. Today, we talked about what purpose is, we talked about why it's important, and we talked about some pretty much the step by step on how you can start considering your purpose and start your process of elimination to finding it. Now, again, this is the end of the three-part series. I gave you tips on how to find your mindset, how to get your lifestyle together, and how to find your purpose. Hopefully now you're finding feeling a lot more confident in your direction in life, and you got some ideas from where to go after this. As always, let me know in the comment section below if you have any questions, any thoughts, anything. I love hearing from y'all. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't yet. Also, I do have a blog if you haven't checked it out yet. I literally write about the exact same things on these videos. That is tylersguide.us. I'll have a link in the description. Anyways, thanks for popping in today. I love y'all, and I will see you in the next video.